Hi, my name is Allison Campbell, and today I want to talk to you about the epidemic of brutality within the local and state police agencies and the government. The growth of police and government brutality has increased drastically just within this year alone. There has been more than 1,000 murders reported that were caused at the hands of our police officers. Now, yes, they take an oath to protect and serve. But more recently, they've taken an oath to leave citizens in a state of fear. The question that I have is, how deep is the government involved in the epidemic of police brutality? The first thing I want to address is the health care provided to inmates that are incarcerated. It's brutality to me because, for one, you have the ability to provide adequate health care, and the inmates have a right to receive adequate health care. Yet in some states, they don't if they do not have money. What about those people who don't have a family to send them money? Are we just going to deny them treatment because they do not have money? That's typically what happens in some states. Another way the government plays a role in the brutality is they do not compensate in a timely manner for those individuals whom were wrongfully convicted. Now, if a defendant can prove their innocence but is not obligated to present evidence in courts to prove their innocence because a judge did not allow them to, that is wrong and it is brutal. And it is also cruel and unusual punishment, which is against the law in our state and in the United States itself. So later on, after they've spent 20 years in prison for a crime they did not commit, the state is obligated to pay them. The one thing that they do not tell you is they don't have a certain time frame to pay you. And my question is, how do you compensate taking a person's life away with money? They cannot get back those years, and money is not sufficient, nor is an apology. Their kids are grown by now. Their family they've missed out on 20 Christmases, 20 birthdays, and sometimes they haven't hugged their mother for 20 years. It's wrong, it's brutal, and it's cruel. Those are ways that the government play in the brutality. Now, as you all know, police officers murdering innocent people has grown drastically over the last decade. Let's look at Anthony Lamar Smith for a second. Anthony Lamar Smith did have a highway chase, and the officer was found not guilty on that crime of murder. But why wasn't charges pursued on the gun that the officer implanted? It was brutal. He was trying to buy himself an alibi. That has never been brought before court, and he's just walking away free. His family, Anthony's family, has not gotten the justice they deserve. The justice that these officers took an oath to give his mother. She left the court in tears because her son was murdered at the hands of a police officer. According to the Bureau of Justice, less than 80% of people pulled over by local officers felt violated, and they were fearful of what may happen. Let's take Sandra Bland, for instance. Sandra Bland was pulled over for a simple taillight, yet somehow she ended up in Montgomery County Jail where her life was shortened. Yes, the jail claimed suicide, but there was no evidence presented to say if that was a true statement or not. Yet her family and her child is left wondering what really happened. So, in several cases presented before a judge, on behalf of the police officers. The officer was found guilty of a lesser offense, but not of murder. They received sentences such as probation and community service, or maybe a fine, and yet they were left to go ahead and live their lives. But my question is, as a legal professional, I question why wasn't a change of venue requested in any of the trials that was presented or that the officers were indicted on. Prosecutors didn't request a change of venue, nor did the attorneys. And out of the 54 indictments just in this year alone, none of them were found guilty. And more than half of those were sentenced by a judge, not the jury that they chose to have a jury trial with. Now, yes, this is our criminal justice system, but it leaves me wondering, what type of relationship did the defendant have with that judge? Was the judge paid to give them a lesser sentence? As has been the case in a recent discovery where a judge sentenced a 17-year-old to a facility for 2 years for possession of marijuana, which is a ticket, because he was being paid by the facility. So I'm left to wonder, is the government working with police officers to hide the crime? Or are we simply ignoring the fact that brutality within our communities, our states, and within the United States is not going to be addressed adequately? I leave with you the reminder of Anthony Lamar Smith. There's still time to seek justice for his family, but will the charges be presented before a jury? And will the judge find him not guilty of that crime as well? After all, he did try to buy himself an alibi.